let's keep the political theme going with State of Play. We welcome back Jan Ting, professor of law at the Beasley School of Law at Temple University and a Newsworks columnist. Also here is consultant Margaret Aiken. Well, Delaware doesn't have a Republican presidential say until April, and a week ago it seemed like we were going to be relevant, then not so much. Now, who knows with what happened earlier this week. So what do you think of the strategy of linking the Pennsylvania primary in April with Delaware's? Does it make a difference for Delaware?
I think it was a good move, and I thought it was a good move even before Santorum won 3 primaries this week. Santorum, like Ron Paul, is an ideological candidate. He's not going anywhere. He's got issues that he wants to campaign on, so it's going to be a long race. Newt Gingrich is in his last hurrah. This is his one shot. He's going to play it out for all it's worth, so it's going to be a long contest. It was always going to be a long contest, and Delaware was smart to position itself with Pennsylvania. There'll be a lot of attention at that time on April 24th.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm a spectator in this one as a Democrat, but it's fascinating to watch. I mean, I think the people's expectation of what this race was going to look like and is looking like now are two completely different things. So, I mean, Delaware could be very relevant, you know, down the road. So I think it'll be interesting to see. The twists and turns in this are so fascinating to me. And
it'll be a bit of a homecoming for Santorum. Do you think that he wins Pennsylvania?
Well, I think he's got a real shot. I mean, people point out that he lost big in his last general election in '06, which, by the way, was a terrible year for Republicans. But that doesn't mean he can't win the primary. I think he's got a political base in Pennsylvania. I think there'll be a lot of attention on April 24th.
One thing I think to consider, though, is he, you know, this week it was a completely different race because, I mean, I think what really happened was the dialogue changed, maybe not the direction of the primary, but the dialogue did. And I think now that Santorum is kind of taken a little bit more seriously, I think there's going to be more focus on him. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of shapes up.
I think social issues took a bigger role this week.
Yes.
What it really shows is that Romney has not closed the deal. The majority of committed Republicans still are not comfortable with Romney, and that says this race is going to go on for a long time.
And we'll stay on presidential politics, sort of on hold in Dover, the national popular vote effort. Thoughts on that?
Well, I was happy to see that initiative tabled. I have at least 3 reservations about it. It is a compact among the states by which they'd all agree to cast their electoral votes for the popular vote winner. But first of all, that runs contrary to the Great Compromise. I mean, why was Delaware the first state to ratify the Constitution? Because we got a good deal. We got the Senate with 2 senators for each state, even little Delaware, and we got the Electoral College, which allocates electors based on the number of senators and representatives. So that was Delaware's good deal. What if the big states had gotten together afterwards and said, now that we've tricked Delaware into ratifying, now we're going to get together and we're going to do it by popular vote. You know, only big states matter. I think that would have been a raw deal for Delaware. I think it's ridiculous that Delaware is even considering a national popular vote initiative at this time. That's the main objection.
Well, I think it's also, I'm not really a purist on this, and I don't really think it's a Democrat versus Republican type of issue. I mean, I think you're right, I think it's more of a small state and population versus larger states and popular areas. I sort of do agree with you. I think that the Electoral College doesn't really do much in terms of there's still going to be a disparity, but it lessens the severity of the disparity in larger states. I mean, we have 3 electoral votes. California has 55. You know, they have 37 million. We have less than a million. And you know, we have, it does lessen the severity of that disparity in some ways.
We have a disproportionate vote, which is what they point out in the big states when they're arguing for the popular vote initiative.
We do.
And also, you know, what if there's a close election? This is a very divided country. In a close election, we're going to have recount battles in every state where there's a contested election, and you know, both political parties have shown that they will lawyer up, and we will litigate this thing till the very end. I think popular vote is almost a national disaster in a close election because we're going to have to litigate till the end of time. It could be like the end of the republic. And how do you hold states to the compact? What if a state says, never mind, we're not going to vote the way we promised we were going to vote? Then what? You know, the proponents say, oh, it's ironclad. Well, those are not lawyers, right? Lawyers know nothing is ironclad. So.
But it's an emotional issue too, because I mean, remember back to 2000. You know, that's the worst case scenario as far as the popular vote folks are concerned. And you know, there's the potential that could happen again. I mean, it could.
So, it could happen again in 50 states, not just in Florida.
It's an emotional issue. When you try to explain this to a fifth grader, you know, you want to be able to explain one vote equals one vote in California and Delaware, but it really doesn't shake out that way. So it's much more complicated, and it is an emotional issue. So you know, but for a state like Delaware, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
We read in the News Journal earlier this week, or I guess last week, that Christine O'Donnell's PAC is running out of money. There's also word of a PAC that will be taking on Tom Carper in his Senate race against the Republican Kevin Wade. Do PACs have a big impact in Delaware or not?
I think they absolutely could. I mean, in my opinion, I think that Citizens Unite was going to go down in history as one of the worst Supreme Court decisions ever. And the fact that, you know, Delaware is unique in that our media market is split. So half of the state is a Salisbury, Maryland media market, and the other half is Philadelphia, and they're very expensive markets. And if you get somebody pumping millions of dollars in, it could make a difference. And unfortunately, you know, we have seen that some negative campaigning does work. So I shudder to think of it. I think this is a repercussion of Pandoras Box being opened, and you know, I hope it doesn't happen.
When I was a candidate, I was trying to convince donors that a senator from Delaware has the same vote as a senator from California or Texas or New York, and that your money goes a lot further invested in Delaware. And now that we have these PACs and super PACs out there, we're already seeing the impact in the Republican primaries. I mean, President Obama has backtracked and realized that the new reality is everyone has to play in this super PAC game and cater to the big donors because they've got all the money, and I think it could have potentially an enormous impact on a small state like Delaware.
Well, that sort of is, I guess, the danger of it, because even if you have sort of this moral stand against doing PACs, like the president came out and said this was, you know,
you have no choice.
You have to be in.
You have no choice. You can't just unilaterally disarm. You're not going to succeed, you know. So I really don't think he had a choice. It's a shame, though.
Real quick, a couple of state legislature things. Minimum wage up over the next 2 years. Is that something that we should be doing right now with the economy the way it is? And trying to encourage job growth?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about minimum wage. Obviously, we're all concerned about low-wage workers, and certainly they would welcome an increase in the minimum wage. It's perfectly understandable. On the other hand, it is going to be a deterrent to employers creating new jobs. And for people that are looking for work, they're trying to get their foot on the bottom rung of the economic ladder, that bottom rung, you know, there's going to be fewer of those bottom rungs if we raise the minimum wage. You know, what's the right level? I don't know. But I think we ought to recognize that it's not completely an either-or issue.
I agree with that. I don't think it's an either-or, but I'm err more on the side of I think it will help the economy. I think it will. The people who are the minimum wage earners, they buy out of necessity. So typically, if they get more money, they'll pump it back into the economy. So I think it's probably a really smart thing to do.
And Jan Ting and Margaret Aiken, thank you for joining us on State of Play.